Hello. Just because ayahuasca is such a miraculous cure for all kinds of physical and mental conditions, and because it's so amazingly beneficial for our health, and because of the numerous reports how it has helped thousands and maybe millions of people to um, get closer to their to enlightenment about the true nature of their soul, we tend to automatically assume that ayahuasca must be something like a warrior on the side of the light. She must be on the side of goodness. She is a warrior for the side of the good against the evil in the internal battle um, of good against evil. But is it really so? In my other videos, I have been maintaining often this very same line of thought. But in reality, I did so just to simplify things. Um, but now I think it's time uh, to go really in depth into this subject and see is really ayahuasca on the side of good, on the side of goodness, on the side of light. As far as the first point is concerned, that she definitely improves the health of people who drink her. That is undoubted. Uh, However, it doesn't mean that she's all good about all things just because she cures. This is not enough of a reason. So what about this removing the layers of ignorance and misconceptions reported by so many people, including me? She helped me a lot in this. I tried various spiritual recipes in my life, but they were less effective, or some of them were actually not at all effective. They were having the opposite effect because they were not true spiritual recipes. But this cleaning process with ayahuasca for me was so much faster and so much more efficient. And many other white people who go to Peru or drink ayahuasca in other locations report the very same results. So knowledge equals light, goodness, and we kind of automatically think, oh, she must be on the side of goodness, right? However, we fail to take into consideration the fact that it could be that it was actually me and other people who approach ayahuasca for um, help in clearing their consciousness. It is us creating our own reality of this knowledge with our intense desire to know the truth about our own existence, about what is it really to be a soul, what is, who am I in reality, because we are not these bodies. We There are thousands of well documented cases of people leaving their bodies, dying, coming back. Millions of people have out of body experiences, near death experiences. So yes, ayahuasca help us understand how and why this happens and what does it mean to exist as a soul, but does it help everybody? My observation is not. She doesn't tend to help in this respect people who do not approach her for this reason. Like, for example, it has become fashionable in Peru nowadays, in the big cities, to renew the ayahuasca tradition. People gather in big groups with shamans, I mean, sometimes dozens and hundreds of people even. It's very fashionable simply because they found out that the gringos, the white people, have rediscovered this, and that's why it became fashionable again. The same way they rediscovered the beauty of their Latin dances, tango, and all that. They were not that popular in their own region before the whites didn't decide that they're so super fantastic. And then the locals over there uh, turned their attention again back to them. So the same happened with ayahuasca. But those people hardly approach it with the same so-called ideas about spiritual awakening, simply because they're not that popular in those regions. It is here in Europe, in North America, that we're so much into this Eastern way of formulating things, defining spirituality in terms of the Eastern views. That is not very popular in South America, so the people don't have that approach to ayahuasca, and the result they get is different. They don't report that often such results that we would call spiritual. Yes, they find it exotic, they find it fascinating and very, very interesting. However, because the idea of awakening is usually not in their mind, they don't report being awakened in the spiritual sense by ayahuasca. So apparently, she's not a warrior for goodness and a warrior for awakening for everybody, but just for those who expect that. Not only that, but traditionally in South America, ayahuasca is not only used for curing and for obtaining knowledge. Unfortunately, it is widely used for evil purposes. Crooked-minded people use it to access other dimension and harm others and do other criminal stuff from the other dimensions. And this is just the way they are. And there is no endeavor on the part of the spirit of ayahuasca personally to stop any such activities. She tolerates them. She is not against them. She allows them to use her as a medium for such things. Needless to say that those people don't get awakened at all. Moreover, there are still a good number of semi-wild tribes who are neither civilized nor completely uncontacted. And they drink ayahuasca, some of them, on quite a regular basis, few times per week. Even the children in the tribe would drink. So obviously those people, they're not at all like, they're living in another world. They have different concepts about everything. And they're quite, actually, they have quite cruel habits. It doesn't seem that ayahuasca just left by itself guides people towards developing qualities like kindness and compassion, which we, the white people, automatically attach to the idea of awakening. That's how we imagine it. One becomes, the outward manifestation of this spiritual awakening. The signs that it's happening is that one becomes kind and understanding and compassionate towards others, by understanding that we are all one, and it is one single divine consciousness that connects us all, that runs through every particle of existence, not only the uh, living matter, the living beings, but even the so-called dead objects. I mean, spirit is everywhere. We realize that. We see it with ayahuasca. However, the tribes who drink it on a regular basis and have been drinking it for thousands of generations probably, they don't seem to develop, at least in some cases, or we can even say in majority of cases, because tribes in the Amazon basin are not friendly. They first kill you and then they shoot at you and then they inquire who are you. So apparently, it's obvious ayahuasca does not lead people towards such realizations unless they themselves use ayahuasca for this purpose. Okay, so where did we reach? Basically, if we impartially observe what is happening in various groups, types of people who use ayahuasca, we can make the conclusion that ayahuasca is definitely not a warrior for the side of light, a knight of goodness, so to say. It is not also on the side of the evil. No, definitely not. We can make the conclusion actually that ayahuasca doesn't take sides at all. I mean, another group of people that I forgot to mention are drug addicts. There is a good number of drug addicts who actually try to use ayahuasca to get high. And that's the only thing they are interested in. I mean, to have some good trip, that's how they call it. Usually it doesn't work well for them, and after a few attempts they decide that this is not a very good drug and go for something else. But while they try it, it is extremely rare that some of them will report some sort of educational use. There are cases. There was a case of drug addict complaining on internet how he drank ayahuasca and he got lectured in English on moral and other things by some spirits or the spirit of ayahuasca. I don't know who exactly did it. So there are exceptions. I mean, it's always, every case is individual. What do we know about this drug addict? He may have had some desire to improve himself in moral sense, and that's why he got his desire fulfilled by ayahuasca, although he didn't tell it directly to the spirit and he didn't expect that. But in general, we don't hear reports of enlightenment from drug addicts who approach ayahuasca with a completely different idea. So the fact that ayahuasca is on the side of goodness is kind of self-evident for so many people, and that's the way we see her being portrayed in the hundreds and maybe thousands of testimonials of ayahuasca experiences that you can find on YouTube, on internet, and various other sources. But if you really think well, maybe you can pause this video and think for yourself and process the information I just gave you. I think you will agree with me that this is not as self-evident as it seems. And I think that we should inquire into these matters. It is important that we do it. I mean, there were periods in history when nobody doubted on Earth that the Earth is flat, because it was just so self-evident. Look anywhere and you will see only flat surface. So things are not always the way they seem to be. Okay, now I'm gonna tell you my understanding of why ayahuasca doesn't take any sides. I'm not claiming that this is the philosophy of the ayahuasca spirit herself. To be honest, I have never talked with her personally. maybe I have seen her a few times from far away. But I but also, if you think that you should rather hear the opinion of some famous shamans in this regard rather than my opinion, I will tell you honestly also something else. Probably the number of shamans who talk with the spirit of ayahuasca directly anytime they wish and can ask her anything they wish and get the absolute correct answer. This number, there are such people, but this number actually is much, much less than you expect. Back on the taking sides in the battle between good and evil. And how did this concept appear at all about the battle between good and evil? I think this is the most important point. This is what we take to be self-evident, that good and evil are in some sort of perpetual battle, and we take sides, and this is one of the, so to say, basic lines which guides our lives. However, this is not at all set in stone. It appears actually that this idea has been introduced during the early stages of making, of turning the Christianity into an institution. During this process of institutionalizing the original Christ teachings, I think most of them simply vanished. They were hardly given any chance. And I personally believe that most of the Christian branches nowadays have totally lost their connection with the original Christ teachings. And what we have is some fragments from those original teachings mixed with various fairy tales and philosophy meant to make people easily manageable. And the philosophy that got cooked was aiming mostly at ruling the masses by few people with the help of this newly prepared ideology, which unfortunately had little to do with the ideas which Christ originally wanted to convey. And one of these newly cooked fairy tales was about this perpetual battle between good and evil, in the sense that evil is against God, and even things like God is trying to fight the evil, and we should be like helping God fight evil. I find this a bit ridiculous actually, because if we assume that God is this primeval, all-including consciousness, I mean the consciousness of all that is, the collective consciousness of everything that exists, and the creator of all that, the original designer, engineer, so to say. Obviously, God is has engineered evil and cannot be weaker than it. And since he is almighty, if he wished to defeat evil, it would have happened immediately. So apparently, I think this is really a fairy tale. Yes, we could say people are simple at those times and they needed simple to understand things, and that's why fairy tales were created. Okay, maybe that has some truth to it. But I think nowadays our collective consciousness has reached the point where we need to go beyond this fairy tale and many other fairy tales, because I noticed that too many people are getting aware about the true nature of their consciousness. And I think we can go far beyond now at this point, far beyond the fairy tales. So what is evil? Why do we suffer in our lives? What is this all about? For those of you who haven't heard or read Michael Newton's book Journey of the Souls, I would highly recommend to do this now. It's also available in audio format on YouTube for free. And over there, he presents testimonials of under hypnosis who tell with from their own perspective what is happening in between lives. And the reports we get from this scientific research done by Michael Newton completely are in complete coherence. They agree completely with the various ancient teachings that are well preserved till nowadays, like the Vedic literature. Other forms of ancient knowledge, like legends which were transmitted orally, unfortunately has lost a lot of their original content and meaning, for the simple reason that the people who told them, to the next generation, they did this from their own perspective and added all kinds of their own ideas to them. But in some cases, there are ancient books which reached us without being changed in their original form. And I find them to be the most correct record about what is really reality. And I find them to be one of the purest forms of knowledge without all kinds of contamination from so-called self-evident ideas which the thousands of generations tend to pile up on the pure knowledge and in this way cloud it. So, sorry for going a bit away from the subject. So, it seems that in between lives, in between different incarnations, the evil doesn't have power on us. It seems that evil only and suffering is something that we experience only while we temporarily decide to get plugged into a particular body of a particular species on a particular planet to experience different things for educational purpose, which education is meant to prepare us to become really particles of God, to learn how to create. Suffering and all the misfortunes that come upon us as if from some sort of bad fate or bad luck, some people call it, are actually kind of reminders that we are creating something that is not in harmony. It's a very clear indication that something is wrong. We should be manifesting other things with our creative power to model our life and our existence with our thoughts and beliefs. It's very simple. Also in the Vedic literature, it is clearly mentioned the original consciousness, the original so-called God, the primeval consciousness. He simply fulfills all our desires. That's what he is doing, and everything that happens to us is a result of our own thoughts and beliefs. So when we have created ugly things of violence and suffering and all these things, the conclusion, the lesson that we should learn from this is that we should not create such things. They do not feel good. Very simple example. If we collectively as humans don't like war and all the horrors it brings with itself, we should simply stop meditating on war, thinking about war, and believing in war. I mean, the very belief that there is any excuse that some people should go and harm other people, this shouldn't even exist as a concept. This is something that should be self-evident, actually, that such things should not be done for any reason at all. Apparently, many of us have still many things to learn, and that's why the evil is still here. And Ayahuasca is not fighting it because this is our learning tool. It's not bad. Evil is just a reminder for certain living beings in certain situations that you're doing something wrong. So why should Ayahuasca take away our uh, how to say, techniques? There is no reason, and that's why she's not doing it. The point is that we have to learn to discover things ourselves. It is very typical when people approach Ayahuasca for with various questions in mind. It is very rare that you will drink Ayahuasca and there she comes standing in front of you with glittering dress and magic all around her, and she's telling you in plain English or whatever your language is, or telepathically, the answer of all your questions. Why is she not doing it? She certainly can, and very rarely does, but usually it doesn't work that way at all. Usually she just shows you with in all sorts of interesting ways how to discover the answers yourself. So it really seems that this is the point of everything, to learn how to discover the answers ourselves. And this is exactly why Ayahuasca doesn't take sides in good and evil and the so-called battle between good and evil. She is not here to tell us what to create. She's here to help us understand our potential as creators. I think she's here to tell us, to help us reveal ourselves, who are we, and she's not here to tell us what to become. This video has inspired you to dig deeper within yourself and question more what is the nature of your true consciousness. And also I hope that it has inspired you to create only beautiful things.